Hey, welcome again to another edition of What's New with Jenkins. Made up a name today. And yesterday, March 11th, 2021, Jenkins 2.277.1 was finally released. We got Mark here again with us for this release. Mark Waite, he is the Jenkins Documentation Officer. Mark, how you doing today?
Great, Darren. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. I had to look down because I'm monitoring on YouTube. You ready for some Infinity? Right. So,
Ooh.
and I had forgotten to mute it. All of a sudden when I unmuted my mic, I started hearing noise and went, okay, there's going to be feedback. So that's why in the beginning was a little weird. Anyway, it's here. We've been talking about this since December, right? Is that correct? December, January, February. Yes.
Yes.
And now it's here. If you're watching this right now, if you're here with us live, thanks for joining us live today. If you're watching this on replay, if you're unaware of what was happening, Mark, do you want to give us a quick, actually before we do that, Jenkins LTS was released yesterday, 277. Tuesday, 2.80.
283.
3 came out this week, 283.
Mm-hmm.
These numbers are getting large.
Yes, they are.
But it's only X, Y, and Z. That's good. Not A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Never mind. That's a different conversation for another day. But lots of things were there. We'll talk about them more in depth. But let's talk about first what a LTS release is within the Jenkins community. Just in case.
So,
if you've never been with us here before, we talk about this every time, but if this is your first time here, understanding what the LTS process is will help you out understanding what's going on.
yeah. So Jenkins regularly, every week, releases a weekly release. That weekly release is a great source of latest changes, latest things. However, many users want something that's a little more stable. And so 4 times a year, Jenkins chooses a baseline for a long-term support release. That 4 times a year choice then is followed by every month after that baseline, another release incrementing that rightmost digit. So 2.277.1 now, a month from now will be 2.277.2. Another month after that, 2.277.3. That sequence allows people to upgrade their Jenkins controller to something that's stable, that they can be confident, hey, it's working well, it's been through more testing and more serious defenses against regression than the weekly releases have. The weekly releases are really also quite stable, but LTS is really all about stability.
And stability is key. Unless you're wanting to work overnight, work on the weekends.
Well, and in this case, weeklies are really good if you want to explore the latest. The best and latest user experience checkout stuff is happening in weekly. But it matures, it refines, it gets a little better, and then gets into an LTS some months later.
That is correct. And now we're here at the LTS for 277. Specifically, .1 for March 2021. Let's take a look real quickly at the release notes. Big things. And I remember calling this out when we talked about when 264 first came out, or 260. What was the previous LTS? I've already forgotten.
263.
263.
Yeah, so
I've already forgotten. So one of the things that I called out, and it's right here in front of me, so I still forgot it, even looking at it. One of the things here that says changes since 277. Can you explain that? And we'll get into the big details in a minute, but what does this mean? Because, wait, you just told me that this is 277, but you're telling me there have been changes since 277.
right, good, excellent question. So 277 was chosen as the baseline. Well, weekly releases continued to be delivered after 277, and as those weekly releases were delivered, we learned more and more from the experience of users of the weekly releases. we discovered things that were problems in 277 that we fixed in later weekly releases. And this list, the changes since 2.277, is the list of things we backported from later weekly releases intentionally to the stable 2.277 branch. So these are things that were in 277 as issues that we said, oh, we cannot deliver 277 with this. We need to backport this change onto the 277 stable branch so that users won't be affected by these things that we had fixed already in weekly in later releases like 280 or 281.
Right. And for everybody that's joining us here live, if you weren't here right at the very beginning, thanks for joining us live today. If you have any questions or comments as we're going through, just over to the right of your screen, or if you're on mobile, it may be somewhere else, you can go ahead and chat with us as well. So just taking a look at this, so we've talked about anything that was after 277. And then here are the list of notable changes. Not all changes, but notable changes. And we're going to call out the main ones here in just a moment. But Mark, honestly, even though I understand the big four that we're getting ready to discuss, this was actually not a very quote-unquote large release. The four made up a very large part of, I mean, it's the primaries.
Right.
And they're very large within themselves, but I've seen other first LTSs be like earth-shattering, and this one's earth-shattering in a different way.
Good point. Yeah, this one, the community focused itself on the four main areas that we're going to highlight, and that meant that some of the other features that might have commonly arrived in a .1 LTS were held. All right, so they didn't get as much attention, and so this one is about those sort of big themes that we're going to talk about today.
And let's go and get into the first one, configuration form modernization, also known as
tables to divs.
Thank you.
So, and that's such a cryptic phrase. I like configuration form modernization because it actually helps people understand what's happening. Tables to divs is about the technical implementation, and the technical implementation is to most users not relevant. So,
right.
Yeah, so let's talk about configuration form modernization. So Jenkins, when it was created 15 years ago, used the layout system that was preferred at that time. It used HTML tables. And HTML tables worked, and at that time they were viable for a way to present orderly, columnar, useful information. However, HTML layout has improved dramatically in those 15 intervening years, and now there are much better ways to do layout. And we've got much wider range of screens, widths, and sizes than we ever had before, right? You could want to see Jenkins on your phone. You might want to see Jenkins on a 3,000 pixel wide monitor, and various sizes in between those two. So this modernization of the configuration UI is intended to help people as they live in the modern age of widely variable screen sizes.
And do you want to show the demo right now, or do you want to wait a little bit later for that?
You know, how about, shall we wait a little later? I'm open to either.
Yeah, because
I'm
trying to figure out.
Of it?
No, that's fine. We'll wait on it because we will revisit this point about the sizing
Right.
in a few moments with an example that has, how do I say this politely, driven me up the wall a number of times.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. There are times when my screen isn't wide enough, even as big as it is, and pity those who don't have the huge wide screens that many of us have on our desktops. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to go ahead and move on to the second item?
Sure.
Okay. Next one is Spring Security Framework,
Right. So
also known as Death to a CG, maybe?
Yes. Well, no, that's a very good way to phrase it. I like that. Yeah. So the Jenkins security framework, the framework on which Jenkins is based for its security, its authentication work, was called a CG, and that was a predecessor of this Spring security framework. And we had built ourselves on that CG framework and had been staying on that framework for an extended period. Now, and the problem with staying on older pieces of code is that there are many times when organizations that are sensitive to security will scan your code, see it, and realize this old library is here and there have been vulnerabilities reported against that library. And it raises issues for them. It raises issues as they deploy the software into their sensitive environment. Even if those issues are well managed and not real vulnerabilities, the fact that it appears on a scan is an issue for them. This upgrade from a CG to the well-supported, currently maintained, and actively developed Spring Security Framework helps avoid that very problem, gets us onto a current and modern security framework that is actively maintained by other groups.
That last phrase is key. Actively
It is.
maintained by other groups.
Right, and we like that, right?
Yeah.
We are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we admit that it's wonderful that open source software can build on other open source software as its foundation.
Which leads us into our third big item. This was probably the biggest out of the four, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay, and see, this one for me, I've been so impressed with the work that was done on it that we were dependent on let's get to the very foundation. Jenkins stores its data on disk in XML. That means all configuration, all build results, everything is done with XML. And the way it does that is it serializes Java objects to disk using this XStream library. Well, the XStream library maintainers and the Jenkins developers many, many years ago had some disagreements in terms of what should the evolution of the library be. And the Jenkins developers decided to create their own copy of that library, a fork. That forked copy, they maintained, they cared for it, and they evolved it the way they wanted. However, now, many years later, we see the same kind of challenges as we saw with a CG, that it's being detected as, wow, this is a really old, outdated library, may have these vulnerabilities. Jenkins isn't vulnerable to them because it's been designed not to be affected by those, but it's a cause for concern. The effort has been done to return to the original baseline, still maintained. Now we're again standing on the shoulders of giants, in this case the XStream library maintainers, and we can use a current release of the XStream library instead of our private copy.
And that's great, because there's a time when you need to fork, there's a time when you need to not fork.
Well, and it's impressive how much energy it can take in order to undo a fork, right? There were reasons why the things were split off originally, and those reasons have to be understood, managed, and then undone or reworked so that we can fit with the vision of the current maintainers of the XStream library.
Yep. Again, it doesn't sound like much, but almost everything runs through this library.
Right. And you said it exactly. This is underpinning any operation that writes to disk in Jenkins, right? If we're writing XML to disk, it's going through this thing.
Yeah. And the last big item, you called it ASM update. I haven't seen that phrasing used in any of our other things, so explain it to me a little bit.
Yeah, so what this one is there is a Java bytecode manipulation library called ASM. This Java bytecode manipulation library is used inside some plugins and used inside Jenkins to perform operations on Java bytecode. What happened was that we needed to update that ASM library to a newer version. And that ASM library version update surprised us with at least 2 or 3 different plugins that had stronger dependencies on the older version than we expected. So we had to revise those plugins. And there were a number of users who reported issues during the weekly process of, oh, I've got this problem and this problem. And ultimately, we tracked them back to exactly this. The ASM library had to be updated, and these 2 or 3 plugins had stronger dependencies on a specific ASM library version than they really should have had.
and now no more. Well,
Right,
we say
exactly.
that. We'll see.
Right?
Because you didn't go through all, how many plugins now?
1800.
1800. Yeah, I was getting ready to see.
Right.
Yeah, no. Okay. So ASM update. And you were mentioning plugins.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth because of this. That
I
CVS
don't-
plugin has now been unbundled. Okay.
So I hope not, but I think it's a great story, and I love the story of this particular one because it reminds me something about the lifespan of software, right? So Jenkins, as it evolved and grew, started with some functionality that was right inside the core of Jenkins, including CVS support. And as Jenkins was evolving, and this is think roughly 3 or 4 years after its creation, it was realized, hey, this does not belong inside. Let's split it out as a separate plugin. But in order to retain compatibility, we need to, even though it's a separate plugin, it needs to be shipped with Jenkins. Otherwise, we will break compatibility for people who assumed it was inside. Well, CVS, you can imagine, is not a very heavily used source control system anymore, right? It's gone the way of many things, as we just don't use CVS anymore. So with 2.277, the CVS plugin that previously had been bundled inside Jenkins is actually no more. We did that because we were confident that all the plugins that Jenkins ships today in the public do not have a required dependency on this bundled plugin. Now, that doesn't mean customers or users couldn't have their own custom developed plugin that depends on CVS and on an ancient version of CVS. They could, and the answer, if they do, is they need to update their plugin to depend on a newer version of Jenkins. And newer versions of Jenkins are recommended to either 2.249.1 or 2.263.1. Choose one of those relatively recent LTSs as your new baseline.
Okay. So, and I was looking over the notes while you were going over that. Do you want to get into highlights now, or do you want to drop back off and do this demo that we were talking about? And we can go into,
Go ahead.
no, and I think right now, because looking at some of the highlights, that'll be probably more fun than, we're getting ready to do live demos, people.
Yeah, I think now's a good time for demos because one of the things that this release has different than other releases is that users need to be mindful of upgrading their plugins. And we're going to talk through some of this on the demo. So
yeah, I have to find, okay, here, I'll switch it up here. And why is that not showing? Oh, that's why. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go back over here. This demo, I have a fresh, just so there's nothing up my sleeves, because I have no sleeves, 263.4. So the most recent LTS prior to yesterday. Also in this, I have set up a global shared library. Now you may or may not use shared libraries. That's okay. I just want you to understand, Manage Jenkins, configure system. Let's go down to the shared library section. If you have used shared libraries, you're going to like what you're getting ready to see. So as you can see here, I'm having to size out just to be able to see this section right here.
right.
It's just like, oh, come on. Now, I am zoomed in at 133 just so you can sort of see things, but it's, not much different than that.
This is not modernized forms, right?
No, this is not.
That's a table being laid out on my screen, and it's laid out. Oh, that hurts to try to navigate around that table layout. It's just not comfortable.
Exactly. I'm having to scroll around, and in fact, let's make it really painful. Just here for a moment. So, global pipeline libraries. I'm sizing. Oh, wait. Okay, so it resized. Okay, fair enough. Let me go back down to it. Well, it's still not much better.
Right.
Just to be honest. And okay, and then finally it's just like, okay, completely unusable because now I've sized it and it's just bad. Okay. We're going to do a live upgrade. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the plugins as they stand. Now, this installation was a install suggested plugins.
Okay.
Right? That's, by the way, that's what
It's-
everybody should use. Just
Excellent choice. Right. So that gives you a good set of a good baseline set of plugins that lots of people use and lots of people like.
Yep. So right now there are 4 plugins here that are there. There's a newer version available, but I can't use it because fill in the blank.
Because the Jenkins minimum version that they require is greater than the version you have installed. So in the example here, Token Macro and LDAP require a version of Jenkins that is more than 263. And so 2.263 is not new enough. These things are ready. This means that you've likely got updates that you'll need to install after you perform the upgrade of Jenkins from 263 to 277.
Now, before I even do this upgrade, Mark, should I obviously take a backup? So that's step 0, right? Always have a good clean backup.
Absolutely. Take a backup.
Should I do an upgrade of these plugins before I do my upgrade to 277?
Not of these plugins.
Not of
but
these,
for-
but if there were some plugins here listed to be upgraded.
Exactly. Yes. So, and that's a good point. Most of us on our Jenkins installations have plugins in various states, right? We may not have visited the plugin manager recently, and there may be some pending updates. So even before running the upgrade to 277, yes, it's good to update your plugins because there may be changes in those updated plugins that will help you with either XStream the XStream unfork, or with the Spring Security Framework update, or with tables to divs, with configuration form modernization. Any one of those may be involved in a plugin upgrade. So this, before you upgrade, is a good time to perform an update of your plugins.
Okay.
That's absolutely. And
Right.
and don't be dismayed that some of them will say there's an upgrade available, but you can't have it yet. We'll get there.
Yep. Okay, so let's flip over here. I have my upgrade command ready to roll. So here I go. Oh, yeah, I didn't put the -y in. Mark, what OS do you typically use?
I'm a Debian user, but
You're a
I've
Debian
run
user.
plenty of times with CentOS as well. So this is a fine choice.
Okay,
I also have tests that run on OpenSUSE. So between those three, we've got lots of operating systems.
okay. All right, so this is now in the restart. So we'll wait here for just a second. Because this is like legit live. Like this is not a
Right.
video. This is me saying, is this going to work or not?
And while it's upgrading, that's a great time for us to talk more about the why do these plugin updates and what does that help you. So I upgraded plugins before so that I would get the latest available at that time. Now after, I want to upgrade plugins again so that I'm absolutely sure that I get the most recent plugins for this version of Jenkins.
Right. Which is what we will see here momentarily once we sign in. My little machine is going, stop. So, okay. So we're here. Doesn't look very
Wait.
different at this point, right?
It does
It's
not.
just-
Scroll down. Come on, scroll down there. I want to see that
Oh, yeah, okay.
277.
Yeah, so
There
we're
we
down
go.
here.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, yeah, just to make sure. But now let's go over to Manage Jenkins. And let's go to Configure. And again, Manage Jenkins still looks good.
Right.
By the
It-
way,
it-
remember when it didn't look good and was all one column,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
You notice that. Well, and remember when the plugin manager wasn't as nearly well laid out as it is, and when it wasn't as performant as it was, things keep improving, and it's wonderful that they keep improving.
but here's one of those visual changes that we're getting ready to see once this renders.
Yeah, so now we get the fun that the configure system is one of the targets of this configuration modernization. And there, we already see it.
Yep, everything's hard left justified,
Yep.
right? Hard left. Let's go down to the shared library setup. So we still have things that we can order, right? So I could slide this around if I had multiples here.
Right. So drag and drop still works, right?
Yep.
Ordering and sorting things from the drag handles, it still works just great.
This is one of the big changes, and I had checked this out in a weekly. The way the nesting is visualized with these vertical dashes takes a little bit of time to get used to.
Oh, see now, okay, and I found that to be good to hear an alternate because I found that to be a big plus. I got lost in the broad nesting that was happening before. For me, the dashes there were, oh, okay, I've got a visual cue right there as to which level I'm at.
Exactly, and but it took a while to get used to, and it's just been like, okay, all right. So now, remember when we were sizing down the screen before, and it was ugly, ugly, ugly. Oh, a little bit better, ugly, ugly, ugly. Okay, why bother? Okay, so now, roughly still the same starting size. Let's get back over here. You ready for this? Watching. Oh, a little bit of a resize. Watching. Still looks pretty good. Here, let's look at this. Let's watch down here.
You can still get your job done.
Wait, I can still get my job done. Okay. All right, so this is probably iPad level at this point, or some sort of tablet size.
Right.
Dude, I'm pushing like a phone at this point.
Right.
Right? I'm almost, okay, and that's as far as I can go. All right, so before I lose it off the end there. That's still extremely usable. Extremely usable.
Yep. And that's why this configuration form modernization is so powerful.
Yep.
Right? Okay, yes, it did require changes to many, many plugins. And so those plugins, those changes have taken us some time, and it's been a lot of effort. We're very grateful to Felix Karuga and to Tim Jacome and to Joseph Peterson and to many others, to Oleg Nanashev, for all their work on making the changes that were needed to allow this to work.
Speaking of plugins, remember with 263 we had those 4 plugins that, hey, there's new ones, but sorry, you can't have it. You're not old enough yet.
Right. We're now older.
We're now older. Now this is interesting because I need to force this check. That didn't happen to me before, but that's fine.
Well, and actually, I think this may point that there's something, because that shouldn't have. It should have done an update now implicitly. Tim Jacome made a change that should have caused that immediately to, on startup, refresh the updates.
Refresh it.
So I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, I'm a little, because that didn't happen to me when I've tested this a couple of times before. So that was the first time it happened. So, yeah, there's an issue. Not a big deal.
be sure that you, if it doesn't already present to you, press the check now button.
Yeah. In fact, I would always say press check now anyway.
Right.
Just in case. I mean, I'm running on underpowered hardware right now. These kinds of things happen. It's okay. Now, do these 4 plugins look familiar to you?
Those are exactly the 4 plugins, aren't they?
They are. Now, does it matter right now? I mean, what if I was to install these, what would be, because I know you and I talked about primarily token and LDAP. Is it a visual thing? Because when I looked, there wasn't a big visual thing specifically for LDAP.
So if you don't install token macro, that token macro is one of the ones that's affected by the ASM update. If you don't install token macro and you're using token macro, you're going to get runtime exceptions that will report failure to do a particular thing with an extended parser. So token macro is particularly important in this case because you need that improvement that's ASM update. GitHub branch source is specifically for tables to divs. Branch API is specifically for tables to divs. So for modernization. So those 3. And LDAP, I believe, is for the Spring Security Framework changes, though it might also be for modernization.
Okay. So let's create a multi-branch and just see what happens. Okay, so I haven't done anything yet. I have not upgraded these yet. So parts of this already shows up. So build configuration is good, but that's part of multi-branch, right? That's not specific to GitHub branch source. This is specific to GitHub branch source.
And I think you're going to see, yeah, if we watch this, we will see that there are some issues on this one that the update to GitHub branch source will help. I don't know that they're immediately visible. I haven't experimented with this one in old form, but I suspect that there will be things in tables to divs here, or things in the form modernization that will be better after we do the upgrade.
Okay. All right. Let's run that upgrade real quick just to make everybody cringe a little bit more. And I should have been keyed off, Mark, while I was saying this. When we first came in after the reboot, we didn't have the red bell, so that should have been my first
And
first
that's,
clue that it wasn't there.
that is a little surprising, because certainly the code has been implemented that intends to, on initial restart after an upgrade, now we immediately check the update center. We invalidate our local cache and check the update center.
Okay. So we'll let that restart here real quick while we're waiting on this to restart. And we'll come back to this in a minute. Maybe. I don't know. I'm looking at the notes again here. So I was looking at a couple of these. So the before and after is a big deal. We're talking about this is a plugin upgrades before and after. It matters. I mean, we're already seeing some of these, but I was trying to figure out. I think probably the biggest one is ASM, right?
Well, it depends on which things are crucial to you, right? If you don't upgrade a plugin that is based on Spring security, there's a risk that you might not be able to log in. So it's crucial. If you are running some ancient version of one of the authentication plugins, you may be stuck and need to roll back. So it's important that you upgrade before that you update your plugins before you upgrade your Jenkins version, so that you're using the current versions of those plugins as the new Jenkins version arrives. Now, having said that, some of us have the tendency, and we saw it more 2 or 3 years ago before configuration as code was widespread, of using an interesting mix of old and new plugins where we're worried about upgrading a plugin. Right. The current mantra is upgrade your plugins, all of them. It's just the best way to manage your Jenkins. If you discover some serious regression, first try to persuade the maintainers to fix it. If not, okay, you might roll back that one thing. But in general, you want to be running the thing that everybody else is testing. And everybody else tends to be testing the current release of the plugins.
Yep. Okay, so we did the upgrade and everything still looks pretty much the same here. I probably should have dug into that a little bit more.
No, actually, this is great, because it says that this was not a catastrophic break,
right,
where we said, oh, we're locked out. There are cases where we might, in fact, have been locked out if we hadn't updated the plugin. So that's great.
Okay, cool. Anything else we want to share in this?
I
277?
I think we could, let me do a quick check of my notes. So we've talked about ASM, we've talked about XStream, we've talked about Spring security, and we've talked about configuration form. I think we've covered them.
Yeah. Again, you're going to look at this release list and go, well, there's only like 15 or 20 things called out here, right? Which is very different than most .1 LTSs. But these 4 things are big. There was one other thing that we didn't put on the list, was the jQuery upgrade, which, if you had written a specific plugin that had a dependency on I can't remember what the dependency tree on it was.
The old jQuery, we were actually delivering jQuery 2.1, and then plugins were delivering varying versions of jQuery with complications hiding in that. Well, Felix did the work necessary to allow us to upgrade to the current jQuery version that has the same securing story and old version story. There are known issues in jQuery versions prior to jQuery 3.5.1. And security scanners were flagging those, saying, hey, there's this issue. Even if it doesn't affect Jenkins, we don't want the barrier to people using Jenkins of being told, oh no, it's using this old version. Yep. So we're using current release.
Yep. And for the people that are here with us live, or if you're watching the replay, down in the description, all the links that we're showing today are down in the description below the video. So right now I've got the upgrade notes pulled up. We've already talked about each one of these things. They go into a little bit more detail around these items. Again, nothing, they're all huge, but they're nothing huge, if that makes any kind of sense. Because each one of these are either it works or it doesn't work. It's that level of huge, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and Jenkins values compatibility.
Yeah.
We like very much being able to be compatible, and therefore we evolve incrementally.
Speaking of incrementals, if you want to go back and read the original blog post that documented these items, those links are also down below. Let's get into a couple of the recent highlights, because some of these are really cool.
They are.
So do you want me to go back over to Plugin Manager, or?
Sure. Let's go to the Jenkins plugin site. I think that's what we've got there, right?
Yep, you got that.
Yeah. So this one is a deep, profound thanks to Gavin Mogan. He has, and to Algolia, Gavin has integrated Algolia search engine into the Jenkins plugin site. So
I'm going to look for your name, Mark.
There's a good one. Mark E. Waite.
Do we have to do the whole thing?
You have to do Mark E. Yeah, this is what you're doing by asking this question is show me the plugins Mark maintains.
Oh, okay.
So what you just did is you asked, okay, which plugins is Mark maintainer on? And the Algolia search engine very promptly returned, here are the things.
Yep. And there's search by Algolia. Algolia, thank you for
right
working with Gavin on this.
Oh, and he's done amazing things with this. So you could look for, I want to see things that are related to strategies. There might be a build strategy that I need. So try searching for strategy. And guess what? It knows linguistically that strategy and strategies are in fact the same word. And so this is a nice piece of work that is helping make life better and easier for plugin users. Now, for us as maintainers, we get an added benefit here in that we get a report now of queries that were submitted that had no result returned. Oh. And now we can find, whoops, people are asking this question and they're not getting any answer. Why not? And what that helps us do now is improve and refine which are the areas that people are of concern and why aren't we giving them an answer to that question?
Can you think? Is there one that you can say right now that made you?
There is. It's actually it's a little awkward, and we haven't yet decided on a final solution. But we've got lots of people asking for TFS. And now, Darren, what does TFS stand for?
Team Foundation Server.
Very good. So
Team
Foundation Server is a Microsoft provided source control and process management and bug tracker. And it's an amazing thing. Unfortunately, the plugin that we had that supported Team Foundation Server was not compliant with an open source license. It had proprietary components in it, and so we had to remove it from distribution. Right. And so we've got people who would love to use that, and they're showing it to us by searching for it. And so it's given us reason to think, okay, what can we do for TFS users to help them? So the search results are really helpful for us as we try to find out what will most help users.
Interesting. So which
now
I'm not going to get into it, but I was going to say which is used less, TFS or Git, but or it's not Git, CVS. TFS or CVS.
So and I have a clear answer there. TFS is obviously used more. But
it's a joke.
That's
sort of.
Yeah. So now, in addition to search on the plugin site, click any one of the other items in the top menu there, either blog or documentation, and now we're going to go to the Jenkins documentation site. So www.jenkins.io, it has site search now as well.
Oh.
So that search box on the right there is again enabled by Algolia. Now this one is where Gavin had to code the plugin site search. Sort of, he crafted it by hand because of the specific needs. Here, all we did was add a little bit of JavaScript, and Algolia does all the work with the thing they call doc search.
Yep.
Now, and great choice, what you just searched for, shared library, highlights about the fourth one down using shared libraries. Okay, that's a good choice. One of the things that we still have to solve here is those top three are actually developer choices that are not as relevant to the typical user. So what they are is those are developer things, and so we're considering, should we split this into two sites, one for users and one for developers, and index two different ways? You know, there's work to be done here, but we are so pleased with that we're searchable. So if you look for, let's see, credentials maybe, or install. I just found a bug related to install. So yeah, click offline installations there. And okay, now how would I have found this page previously? I'd have had to either use another search engine outside of the Jenkins site or get lucky and find it by navigating the tree.
Right. That's good. When did that go in? Like, it had to have just gone in.
Yeah, just a few days ago.
Okay.
So now another fun one. So let's think of a pipeline step with credentials is one, or maybe we choose a, yeah, with credentials is good. Okay, so now top hit, credentials binding plugin, click that. Here is the pipeline step reference, directly accessible without my having to decode which plugin is it in, not searching a big page. The search makes the experience better for users. Now, pipeline step reference is, for me, still much, much worse than just use the pipeline syntax generator inside Jenkins. But if you need to use the steps reference, here it is. And it's indexed.
Very nice. Gav, I need to get you back on to talk about this. We talked with Gavin in December, I think, or January.
Right.
And before,
Yeah.
right before this, when he was talking about this.
Well, and Gavin's insights on how this, what it's been like to evolve this and to make it work and to make it work well, have just been, it's been fascinating to watch as he's done
Very
it, because
cool.
he's done a great job with it.
Very cool. What's upcoming?
Let's see. So upcoming, we've got a broadcast going out next week on this same topic, Jenkins 2.277.1. The meetup will be happening.
Yep.
And in this meetup next week, we're going to actually have a panel discussion with 3 of the lead developers who did the work on Jenkins 2.277.1. Jesse Glick, who did the Spring Security Framework upgrade and the XStream unfork. Felix Karuga, who did the jQuery upgrade and the tables to divs, the form modernization, and Tim Jacome, who is a major force in the form modernization. We're going to have a panel discussion with them to talk about what's up and how.
So unlike this stream, you'll actually get real information there.
Hey, wait a sec.
If you're a developer, you'll get real information. Hopefully this is helpful if you're management, you're a user, whatever, but if you're actually a developer, you need to make sure you show up for this one. This
Right.
is going to be
Well,
this is going to be a good one.
It's rare that we take the time of the developers to talk with us about what their experience was developing something. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yep, and that will be, again, it's at 3:02. Do you want to take a guess? Because we haven't refreshed this page in about an hour. What do you think?
Ooh, let's see. Did it change from 302? I'm guessing it may
I'm
not
refreshing.
have. We haven't.
Let's see. 304.
2 more.
We've added 2 more. Okay.
That's great.
So, again, if you're on with us live right now and you can attend next week, it is on Wednesday, March 17th at 4 p.m. GMT. By the way, people in the U.S., time changes this weekend. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's
and that's why we declare this GMT, so that countries that meddle with clocks do not disrupt our planning. And
okay. So anyway, if you're here live right now, click on the link down in the description or right after we're done and go sign up for this if you're interested in it. Again, 304 people. This should be a fun one. Anything else that's upcoming That's probably the biggest upcoming thing.
That's certainly the dominant one. CDCon is coming in June. We've
All
got
right.
other events. DevOps World will be in September. So several different events coming up, but in the very near term, come to that webinar next week.
CDCon's fully virtual again this year.
It
Right.
will be. That's
Fully
correct.
virtual. Let's talk about all the office hours. We have lots of office hours,
We
and
do
we're headed into Google Summer of fill in the blank, depending on
code,
which
right?
code and is docs.
Season of Docs will also, we intend to submit our application. We've been accepted to Google Summer of Code. So that one we're
Okay.
already in and we know we're in.
Good.
Google Season of Docs, we got to get the packet submitted. And I guess we've got another one upcoming actually that's a little different. The month of April, SheCode Africa is having an event they're calling Contributhon. The SheCode Africa Contributhon is where SheCode Africa, an organization in Western Africa, is seeking to increase open source utilization and open source involvement by women in Africa. And so what they're going to do is they're going to have a month-long paid sponsorship for women in Africa who will do open source development during the month of April.
Cool.
And the Jenkins project intends to mentor and accept contributions from them. So we're looking forward to that. So that is a cool upcoming thing as well.
Cool. Anything else for today?
That's it for me.
If you haven't upgraded to 277 yet, stop, wait, back up first, do your upgrade in place, not the 277 upgrade, but check your plugins. Get those done first, make sure you're still good, and then you can start moving towards 277. Right? Is that
That's exactly right. That's the approach. Update your plugins, be sure that things are good, perform your backup, update your Jenkins core version, update the plugins one more time, and double check that everything is well behaved.
in other words, take your time with this upgrade.
That's right.
Not like you shouldn't always take your time. This one you really want to take your time. And be sure to go back and read those upgrade notes. They will help you, but if not, hey, we're on YouTube. You can rewatch this and hear us complain right now about take your time. Be really careful. But based on everything that we saw, and this has been in the weeklies since December, and certain things were like, oh, wow, that was a non-event. Sort of like XStream was almost a non-event.
Correct.
ASM was roughly a non-event.
ASM was bumpy for a certain subset, and it was really uncomfortably bumpy for that subset.
Right.
But whereas jQuery for me was almost non-event to the point of, gee, it just was so smooth, didn't detect any problems with it. So they were varying levels of experience for people, and we're looking forward to it being deployed more and more in users all over the world.
Okay. If you want to talk to Mark, there's numerous ways to do it. Here's his Twitter handle. Go be very nice to Mark. If you're trying to figure out where to maybe get started, if you want to help out with Jenkins, if you're just a user, it's like, man, I'm not that great of a developer. Mark is the Jenkins documentation officer. We were talking about Gavin a few moments ago. Gavin's not a developer. Shh, don't tell anybody. He's a developer, but he's not a Jenkins developer, right? Gavin is focused on doing the non-things that you think about, but yet he is, what is his official title now? He's board of
He's a
governors
member of
or
the
what-
governing board.
member of the governing board.
Jenkins governing board. Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And he's not a
And
Java
his-
developer.
No, well, and his compelling value is entirely in JavaScript. In the things that he has done most recently, it's been all JavaScript, and it's been a great help. Infrastructure, JavaScript, have been just wonderful for him. And likewise, my experience is I'm a big contributor in documentation, right? And it's a big help. If you'd like to help an open source project, describing things and writing about them helps other people. I read a tweet recently from a very popular posting person that, hey, documentation is the source code superpower that is kept most silent, right? You can ease a bunch of ills by documenting well.
Yep. Okay. So nothing else? You're good to go?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I'm going to boot you out, and I'm going to wrap up here real quick. Thanks again, Mark. And here goes Mark. Oh, wait. Yeah, there's Mark full screen. That's not what I wanted to do. This technology stuff, man, somebody's got to figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
See you, Mark. So thanks for hanging out with us live today. If you haven't watched previous videos on CloudBees TV, thanks for joining us live today. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click on that subscribe button right now, ring that bell, and anytime there's new content available, you'll get automatically notified. Right now, I have videos going out, usually about Jenkins on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and sometimes other things like this happen live. So if you're subscribed, you'll get notifications of when we're going live. And that should be it for today. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah. I'm on Twitter at Darren Pope, or if you want to reach out to us, again, we can be found on Twitter at CloudBees Devs. So hopefully today was helpful to you. If you haven't signed up yet for the meetup that's happening on looking at the notes, the 17th at 4 p.m. GMT, go do that now. The link is below in the description. Thanks for joining us live today. If you've watched the replay, thanks for watching the replay all the way to the end. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.